Hello and welcome. Today we would like to show how you can prevent fraud or data loss in SAP with a simple palm scan. We will propose to you an alternative to SAP Identity Management. It will be a two-part technology-based solution involving a hardware component from Fujitsu called PalmSecure and a software component from Realtime called bioLock. The key question we're asking is, why is SAP Security not preventing fraud? As we know, traditional SAP security relies heavily on passwords, and passwords alone don't provide identity management. When you type a password into SAP, the system has no idea who typed in a password. It only knows whether a correct password was supplied. So that means if somebody wants to commit fraud, if only they can find out the password of another user, preferably one with higher credentials, they can impersonate that user. This leads us to the conclusion that passwords are the weakest link in the SAP chain of security. If somebody can learn the password of another user that they wish to impersonate, it gives them the perfect alibi for the perfect crime. So let's talk about some of the classic areas where fraud occurs. First of all, we're just not talking about the logon. That is simply the perimeter and really just the beginning. It's once we're in the system that we have some classic areas, functional areas that are targeted for fraud. For example, in finance, the procure-to-pay cycle is a key target, but also anything related to financial transfers and invoicing. In HR, you might have employees trying to change their credentials or look at information they're not entitled to. You might also have hourly paid workers committing time fraud by arriving late. In a sales and distribution environment, if you have retail stores, there could be issues with inventory shrinkage, losses due to unauthorized discounts and returns, and so on. In the materials management logistics area, your concern may be to control the inventory movement, or you may have confidential bills of material or valuable IP in the form of engineering drawings that need to be protected. And then there's system administration, where SAP has some very powerful features that give access to valuable data and should be restricted from most users. Let's start with a Fujitsu corporate overview. Fujitsu is the third largest global provider of IT services, and the statistics on your screen speak for themselves. What is noteworthy is that Fujitsu is one of the most important players in the SAP world, and they've earned the designation of SAP Global Partner. On this slide, you see how various security and biometric approaches can be compared, ranging from passwords, which is security based on something you know, to USB tokens and smart cards, which is something that you have, all the way to biometrics, which is security based on who you are. The illustration specifically is comparing the variables of high security and convenience. You can see that PalmSecure is at the top of the chart in the upper right-hand quadrant. So how does it work? PalmSecure is a biometric authentication system that's based on a vascular scan of the veins in a person's hand. The veins in the skin of each person's palm is very complex and unique and allows PalmSecure to capture an extremely detailed biometric signature. The product is very hygienic because you don't even have to touch the device. It's also a mature technology which has been in use for over 9 years in various industry segments. For example, banking ATM machines in Brazil and Japan, or healthcare and school systems in the United States. PalmSecure is in use in over 200 hospitals with more than 7 million patients registered, and more than 50 school systems are using PalmSecure. Here we have a sequence of images showing how PalmSecure works. First, the user holds their palm several inches above the scanner, and then a liveness detection occurs that prevents spoofing or fraud. Next, an image is acquired using near-infrared light, which captures the image of the vein pattern beneath the skin, and then the image is translated into a mathematical template using Fujitsu's patented algorithms. The template then goes through multiple encryption processes, and the final step is to store the templates in a protected SAP table using bioLock software, but we'll come to that in just a minute. Here we highlight a few of the ways that PalmSecure can be deployed. At the bottom left you see the basic sensor module, which is shaped like an ice cube, and that can be embedded in other devices. So you see to the right of it where it's been incorporated in a physical access device, a PC mouse, a kiosk, and so on. So those are just a few examples of the versatility and breadth of application that PalmSecure offers. And notice also how robust these units are. They don't have any moving parts, and the mean time between failures is set at 1 million operating hours. This slide summarizes some of the key aspects and advantages of PalmSecure. On the security side, because the palm vein pattern is hidden under the skin and it's only visible to the scanner, and also that palm vein pattern is very stable over a person's lifetime. They have the liveness detection built in, which prevents spoofing and makes forgery almost impossible. In terms of accuracy, the inherent complexity of the palm vein pattern means that there are no failures to enroll. Also, the false acceptance rate and false rejection rate are extremely low by industry standards, and the PalmSecure unit is hardly affected by dirt and skin condition and so on. In terms of user acceptance, users respond very positively because the unit is very fast and easy to use, it's hygienic, and the biometric remains hidden. Next, I'd like to introduce Realtime, the developers of bioLock software. Realtime was formed over 25 years ago in Europe by several senior managers that came from SAP. They built up a very successful consulting practice with many multinational corporations, and along the way developed the bioLock software system for enhanced security. bioLock was specifically developed in response to the needs of some of Realtime's clients who required enhanced security using biometrics for their SAP applications. bioLock's been certified for use with SAP for over 10 years, but what is new is that bioLock is now integrated with PalmSecure. By adding bioLock to an SAP installation, it allows you to overcome the limitations of password. So essentially, your SAP security becomes based on two-factor authentication, where the second factor is the palm vein biometric. A key advantage for bioLock is that it leaves all of your existing SAP security untouched. It simply overlays it with a very extensive additional capability. And bioLock uses SAP's native programming language, ABAP, so that makes it very easy for you to administer with existing resources. Let's talk about data granularity. With bioLock software, we're able to interact with SAP's data structure at very detailed levels. For example, we could set a threshold value in a field, such as limiting a specific financial transaction to a maximum value, or we might biometrically lock down a certain table, or a menu item, or an info type, or a button that prints or executes an activity. We'll see an example of that in just a moment. We could even require that two trusted biometric users authenticate for certain critical tasks. All of these security checkpoints are enforced with the PalmSecure scan, so it's impossible for a user to cheat by borrowing a password. Another key dimension that bioLock brings to SAP Security is the types of additional rules it lets you set on a user-by-user basis if necessary. The first example is an all-inclusive rule where nobody is exempted from the biometric authentication, and the example shown talks about customer service reps. The second approach is a selective rule where specific users are invited or whitelisted, and they're the only ones able to perform the restricted activity. And the third rule type is an exclusive one, where you can globally prevent something from happening. The example we've shown here is where we prevent ghost workers from logging in with passwords only. These security checkpoints are maintained in the bioLock Control Center in SAP. If you combine the three dimensions we've talked about, namely the data granularity, the additional rule types, and the user credentials profile, you end up with an extremely powerful matrix of security checkpoints, and they're customized to your organization's specific needs. The bioLock Control Center lives in special tables within SAP, within bioLock's own dedicated namespace, and it sits behind its own biometric firewall so that only highly trusted administrators who have the appropriate biometric credentials can have access. Here's a look at how the security checkpoints are set up. Here we are in the bioLock Control Center working on one of the administration screens. And the example shows how the access to the function of editing customer credit card details has been globally locked down and will now require a palm scan regardless of the user. You'll see how that works on the next slide. Here's what the user might see. In this case, a customer service rep is about to open a customer's credit card details screen, which of course is private, sensitive information. When they click the button, which we've highlighted in green, they find it's biometrically protected, and the PalmSecure prompt pops up and will only let them through if they successfully scan their palm. If ever there's a problem later on with that specific customer, the log file will point back to the service rep that edited that customer's account. We just showed you a detailed example of how a user might experience the system, but let's talk about potential use cases in various functional areas. Here you see a dozen examples of business use cases in HR, finance, retail, and so on, but these are only the tip of the iceberg. There's literally no limit to the checkpoints you can set up. The key is to analyze the risk areas that are specific to your SAP implementation and to secure those areas. Just to go through one specific example in detail, let's talk about item number 5, which is securing patient records. You would probably want to secure not only patient registrations with biometrics, but also any subsequent viewing or editing of those records, whether the patient themselves is doing it or whether it's a healthcare worker. All you need to do is to find out the specific SAP transaction number that corresponds to that activity. In this case, we have NP01, and you build a bioLock security checkpoint to secure it. Please contact us with questions about any of the other scenarios. Here we're taking a look at the overall system integration. When a user inputs a request from a PC or a kiosk or other device, that request will be seen by the bioLock Control Center. And if the activity is protected, the user will be asked to provide a quick palm vein scan, and that scan is compared to the reference template that's stored in the bioLock Control Center in SAP. and the process will also check the user's credentials to see if they're allowed to do the activity that they're requesting. Based on all of that, the system will either allow or deny the activity, and then the event will be logged to create a tamper-proof audit trail, and if necessary, we can send a silent email alert in case of any suspicious activity. Let's review some of the integration opportunities that are on the system development roadmap. We start with the standard SAP interface that you just saw, and it's on the left-hand side of your screen. bioLock also works currently in kiosks for time and attendance or employee self-service. We do have further opportunities on the roadmap to integrate bioLock in the areas of retail point of sale, banking ATMs, healthcare kiosks, tablets, physical access, and more. If you have an opportunity in one of those areas, please ask us for the current status of the development. The combined solution of PalmSecure bundled with bioLock software is now available through Fujitsu Frontech's order desk. Please contact us with any specific questions, whether it's for an online demo or a pilot project, or if you have questions about any of the development projects. Thank you for watching.